I realised the other day that I can tell whether there's enough milk left for breakfast just by picking the bowl up. I don't look, I don't shake it, I don't take the lid off and peer inside like I'm trying to read the future through semi-skimmed milk. I just pick it up, feel the weight, and somehow I know, there's enough there for cereal, for a cup of tea, enough to do the morning, or I know that there ain't, and we're closer to danger than I'd like, yeah? And I know that sounds like nothing, because, it is nothing, it's milk. It's not exactly a heroic adult achievement, no one's going to pull me aside and say, Stu, I just want you to know the way you assessed that dairy situation was exceptional. Which is a shame, because I think I'd appreciate that, maybe a little certificate. But yeah, at some point in my life, without any ceremony, without any training course or certificates in the post or anything like that, I became someone who can just judge breakfast risk by the weight of a milk bottle. And once I noticed that, I started noticing other things, I know which floorboard creaks. I know when the washing machine's about to start its final spin. I know the difference between we need bread and we're in, emergency toast conditions. I know when the fridge has been left open because it makes that weird sound, yeah? And I know when one of the kids is about to ask me for something before they've actually asked, there's that walk, there's a tone, they have an aura, yeah? Any parent knows that aura. A child walks in just too nicely, there is absolutely a request coming, yeah? Nobody teaches you these things, though. Nobody gives you a handbook. You just learn them, It doesn't happen all at once, it's repetition, you live inside a house long enough and the house just starts teaching you, yeah? You live with people long enough and people teach you. Same jobs long enough times, and eventually your hands just know things before your head has properly joined in. And after a while, you stop even noticing, that's what I find interesting. Not that we learn these things. Of course we learn things. People adapt. People pick things up. This is an obvious part of life, yeah? People get used to their own lives. The interesting thing is, I think anyway, is how quickly these things become invisible, yeah? Yesterday's effort becomes today's normal. Yeah, and once something becomes normal, we stop counting it. Yeah, it doesn't exist. It's not knowledge. It's not competence. It's just in the background. It just is. Yeah. It's not something we didn't have to that we had to learn. Yeah, it's just part of furniture almost. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, and adulthood is full of these. These little tiny skills and adjustments and responsibilities, just little bits of awareness that slowly build up until they're just there. You don't wake up one morning and think you know how to load the dishwasher with such precision. You know exactly where all the bowls have to go and where the cutlery get, or and you also become weirdly irritated when someone else does it wrong, yeah? It's not because you're controlling. Sorry, there's an idiot in a Mustang. Where was I? Oh, another idiot in a Mustang. It must be Mustang night here. Okay, cool. Where was I? It's not because you're controlling, it's because there's a system, and so some people, whether they know about your system or not, which is an entirely different subject I'll probably broach at some point, but so some people don't choose your system, they just seem to choose chaos instead, yeah? But there's all these tiny forms of competence hiding in ordinary life, You know how much a portion of pasta is without weighing it. You could just grab a lid and know it's gonna fit on that pan. You know, you get out of the kitchen, you learn when somebody says I'm fine, and you know when they are and when they're absolutely not actually fine. Yeah, you know when a room has gone quiet in the wrong way, and you learn when silence is peaceful, and when silence means that one of the kids has found the scissors. Yeah, none of this is particularly impressive. You know, you don't jot it down on the bottom of your CV. You know, special skills. I can judge the milk. Oh, I mean, I'd interview that person though, so maybe you should. I'm not recommending it, but you know, I'd interview you. Anyway, you know, real life is full of these tiny judgments, and if you get them wrong, it makes your day harder. Yeah, whether you have judged the milk wrong, or you know, you've forgotten the PE kit, or that school form that you've been meaning to fill in, you know, or you've not emptied the bin in time, and now the bag is just gonna tear as soon as you try and lift it. Yeah, these aren't big things, you know, they're not huge things, but ordinary life isn't one huge thing. Yeah, it's hundreds and thousands of tiny little things. Yeah, and adults are just, you know, a lot of adults, we're trying to manage more of these little things than we realize. It happens at work all the time. You know, I'm a chef. You know, when you're first in the kitchen, you know, it's loud. That's the first thing you notice. It's not even the heat. Yeah, most people expect it to be the heat. It's the noise. Yeah, everything is loud. Everything's fast. Everything's urgent. You haven't got a clue what's going on. You don't know where anything is. You don't know what is the most important thing. You don't know what questions you've got are stupid. So you either stand there and blurt them all out, or you just stand in the corner and don't ask any questions, you know? And everything, you have to think through everything constantly, because it's all new to you. It's all new processes, yeah? But, you know, a few years pass, and then you're at that point where you're doing 6 things at once. You know, you're answering questions while you're still plating something. You're checking the oven, but you don't even need to open it all the way, because you know as soon as you pop that seal, you can hear if that piece of chicken is sounding nice and crispy or not, by the way the fat is spitting. Yeah, you know, you can hear when something's frying too hard, or when something's nearly knackered, you know, and you can tell when someone new in, whether they actually understand what's going on, or whether they're just pretending, because you can see the panic in their eyes, you know. And I've known chefs who can tell what a table is ordered just by the different sounds the printer makes as it prints each dish for that table. Yeah, because they've heard that printer go off so many times that just that rhythm of that printer, it becomes information to them, and they don't see that as experience. You know, that it doesn't register as something that they've had to learn over time. You just think, well, yeah, obviously, but it wasn't always obvious. That's the point, you know. A lot of what feels obvious now was once a lot of effort. Yeah, these things weren't straight away automatic. You had to learn them. You had to go through that process of learning them, of getting them into your brain. Yeah, and I think we forget that, because the evidence of this learning, it just disappears into us, that the skill stops looking like a skill because it doesn't take that intense concentration, that effort in the same way. It's just instinct. Yeah? And we treat instinct as if it's always there, yeah? But it wasn't, you had to build it up slowly and awkwardly and messing things up, and oh, I won't do that again, and yep, next time I'll know, and okay, yep, don't leave that till the morning again, and that's how just ordinary competence grows. And I'm not still in the kitchen, I swear to you. I don't want to turn this into just a kitchen video or a kitchen channel, or I'm not talking about kitchens, let's just put it that way. This is about every aspect in life. Parenting is full of these things. Yeah, you things you learn as a parent, they sound completely ridiculous until you live them. And chances are, if you're a parent, you already know half of the things I'm going to say. Stick them down. If you want to bang it in a comment, go for it. See if you get them right, or if you know of anything else that will give us a giggle or whatever, stick it down there. Yeah, can't. But you know when they've got a question, yeah, and whether it needs answering properly or whether they are just thinking out loud with their mouth open. Yeah, you know how long you can be away from the house before you need to be finding a toilet for one of them. Yeah, and you'll learn that if you are going anywhere, you need to take spare socks. Yeah, you just do. It's just a fact. You need to take them spare socks. Yeah, I don't know where they go. I wish I'd learned that bit as well so I could tell you, but you need to take spare socks. But none of this feels like an achievement. That's the point I was trying to get to in a very long rambly way, and I do apologize. Speed it up a bit if you like. But it just becomes life. Yeah, you are learning. Yeah, but it's an adaptation. Yeah, it's your attention is being trained by these people who you love. Yeah, and that sounds a lot more meaningful than it feels, when you're in the hallway saying put your shoes on for the 7th time. But still, that is what it is. Yeah, a life slowly teaches you how to live it, how to be inside it. Yeah, and if you're not careful, you can fall into that trap of only noticing the bits that you haven't mastered. Yeah, it's easy to notice the mess. It's easy to notice those unfinished jobs. It's easy to notice those conversations that went really badly. Yeah, it's even easy to notice the things that you forget. And those parts of you that just feel awkward and unfinished and disappointing. And yeah, okay, it may all be true. Yeah, you don't ignore these things. That there probably are things that need work on. Yeah, that you need to work on. But while you're staring at everything that you haven't sorted yet, you can completely miss everything that has become easier because you've learned it, because you have adapted, because it has become instinct. Yeah, these things don't become easy, yeah, but they become easier, and there's the difference. Yeah, easier. Yeah, you can still be tired, but you can still be more capable than you were before. Yeah, than you used to be. You can still be struggling, but you could be more aware than you used to be. Yeah, easier. Yeah, that's the difference. It doesn't mean that everything is fine. It doesn't mean, you're thriving. I'm not telling you to stand in a mirror and say affirmations. That's not where I'm going with this. It's just that there will be evidence of growth hiding in places where you've stopped looking. Yeah? And it's not gonna be the big dramatic things, yeah? It's gonna be these normal small things, yeah? That do vanish. Yep. Confidence is a lot like that, yeah? We talk about confidence as if it's just boof, it appears out of nowhere, yeah? Like one day you just believe in yourself, yeah? One day the fear is gone, yeah? But that's not how it happens, yeah? We've spoken about confidence before on here. Confidence is just not being surprised at the difficulty of something anymore, yeah? You know the route, you know the sounds, you know the standards, you know that the first 5 minutes are probably going to be the worst, and you know that whatever it is isn't going to kill you, yeah? It's not flashy, I know, but it matters, because a lot of progress doesn't feel like becoming amazing, yeah? It feels like something difficult becoming ordinary. It's becoming easier, yeah? And once it becomes ordinary, you stop giving yourself the credit for that. It's strange, you've been working hard at this thing, maybe not even consciously, maybe subconsciously. You've been working hard at this thing to make it easier, and then as soon as it does become easier, you forget about all the effort and all the work that you put into it, and you don't give yourself any credit for it. And that's just being unfair on yourself. That is so unfair. But maybe part of growing up is just learning to see these ordinary things again, yeah? Not turning it into a huge achievement, yeah? You don't need to clap yourself on the back every time you pick the milk bottle up and there's enough in there for your cereal. That'd just be weird and annoying, and you're going to end up with milk down your back. But every now and then, I just want you to stop for a second and realise, hang on, I wasn't always able to do this, yeah? I couldn't always read that situation. I couldn't always carry this responsibility. I couldn't always handle this kind of day. But somewhere along the way, I learned, yeah? You might not have learned perfectly. You might not have learned it completely. You probably haven't learned it without any mistakes, yeah? But you did it enough that learning disappeared into you, and that is a quieter kind of confidence, yeah? And probably a more honest one as well, because it doesn't require you to pretend that everything is sorted, yeah? There's another side to this as well, yeah? The things that we stop noticing they're not only skills, they can also be the other side of the coin, and they can be burdens, yeah? And this is where it gets less comfortable, alright? Because normal doesn't only make competence invisible, yeah? It makes pressure invisible as well. That's the other side of the coin. And you can get so used to carrying something that you don't recognize anymore just how heavy that burden is, yeah? You're so used to managing the mood that you forget what it's costing you. And when that load has become normal, And it's just, you say it's just life, it's just what I do, it's just how things are. That's where it all gets a bit sharper, because you asking, what have I stopped noticing? It is not only about giving yourself credit. It might also show you what you've been carrying for too long. Yeah. You might have stopped noticing how much you check the bank, or you might have stopped noticing that you tense up quickly every time your phone goes off, or maybe you stop noticing just how much of your day is spent anticipating other people's needs before they become problems. That's not nothing. That is not nothing. Because these things that we stop noticing still cost us, especially when they're normal, yeah? So, I don't know, maybe this is why the milk bowl thought just stuck with me, yeah? Judging breakfast risk by weight, it is not a grand revelation, yeah? But it can point towards something bigger. That there's so much of our lives that we stop seeing, yeah? Because we live inside it every day. You've got your competence, but you've got your pressures, you've got your adaptions, but you've got those responsibilities. And the amount that we notice without realizing we're noticing, yeah? Every now and then it's got to be worth looking again, yeah? Not in a big dramatic way. I know I keep saying this, but everyone wants everything to be these massive grand reveals, but life isn't like that, yeah? It's not gonna be a massive turning point, yeah? But equally, I'm not talking about turning your life into a big old spreadsheet of invisible labor, Nobody wants that. Especially not after doing SOC admin, yeah? But just pausing long enough to ask, what has become normal here? What am I doing every day without noticing? And what have I carried for so long that I've stopped seeing it as weight? Yeah? Because both things matter, yeah? The growth you stop seeing matters, but the load that you stop noticing also matters. Those ordinary things that you handle without the applause matter. Not because every tiny thing needs a medal, but because life is built and carried in tiny things, yeah? One child's mood gets noticed before it breaks, One conversation maybe just softened before it turns. These things aren't nothing. Maybe the question isn't only what have I achieved. Maybe sometimes the better question is, what have I stopped noticing? Because somewhere in that answer, you might find two things, yeah? You might find proof that you've grown more than you've realised. And you might find proof that you've been carrying more than you admitted. I know I keep coming back to it, yeah? The things that we stop noticing do not stop mattering. They just become familiar. And familiar things are easy to overlook, especially when they're holding half of your life together. You choose how it ends.